I believe we're live now. My fault. That was internet from me. Damn, I shouldn't name them. Um, but it's not rain. Usually they're the
And you
shitty ones.
live in a city.
I
You live in
do.
a city. I
Do
live out
I?
in the sticks. I live in the middle of nowhere. And my internet's like, solid put. I've got this. It's because you know what, right? I live where Buddha live. So even the internet here is like, no, we don't give up, no, fuck it, we will take it through all the way. So we've got it. No, just kidding. Just kidding. We're not gonna do stereotypical kind of shit. So
No.
anyway, entheogens. I don't know where we got I don't know where we
Just
got
you
cut
were
off, but basically
saying
we wanna.
the last thing I heard from you is that drugs are very vague. Uh,
It's a very
Definition.
vague thing. Drugs is a very broad concept. Anything that kind of you can ingest that alters your being, your state of mind is a drug. Um, but we want to talk a little bit more about specific groups, which is psychedelics, but within the so we call it the context of an entheogen, right? So and it's arguably it's very much the same thing. It's just entheogens are kind of more the term that is used when a psychedelic is used for spiritual or internal type development, etc. It's not necessarily just taken as a recreational drug, as you would with normal psychedelics.
Yeah.
So it's terminology kind of matters, but it's at the end of the day, it's the same kind of thing. Now, when you talk about a psychedelic experience, I think most people don't really even understand what that is, because it's kind of out of the realm for most people to understand what it is because it's not really necessarily that mainstream. So how do you even begin to describe a psychedelic experience to people that's never had one? It's kind of like how would you start to describe color to a blind person?
Mm.
So the psychedelic experience in itself, it is when you say psychedelic experience, most people don't even have a context of something that they can kind of relate it to, right? Now they talk about hallucinations. Right now, most people has experienced some form of a hallucination, and that is, when you have sort of semi-dream state, when you have fevers. Fevers often cause hallucinations, or these states where you may believe you're awake, but you're still dreaming, and then you sort of go through these lapses. Those are common effects um, of fever. Is this this hallucinatory effect. Now, I suppose if you've never experienced a psychedelic, then I would say hallucination is arguably one of the closest things you can bring it to, but it's not. I mean, it's not even nowhere near that, right? So, um, uh, it's and it's such an important, in terms of my, and I'm really just speaking from my personal experiences. And I'll be honest, I have taken several psychedelics, none in recreational kind of settings, I would say. So none at like clubs or raves or in those kind of things. It's all at home, quiet space, set and setting, people to look after me. So for me, it was always about almost like an experimentation of the mind to kind of see where it was. I grew up very conservative my entire life, not touching anything. And then in my mid 30s, I started experimenting with cannabis. And very quickly, I went from cannabis to ayahuasca and DMT. And I'll go into a lot of like what these things are, and what and how a lot of these things have been used for hundreds of thousands of years. Well, maybe not hundreds of thousands, but there's documentation and there's evidence that kind of point to that psychedelics have been part of our um, sort of growth as human beings it's always been part of like a shamanic experience. That's why they always spoke about the shamans that would collect certain plants, they would take certain um, they would make certain concoctions, and they would imbibe those, and then they would go into what they would call into a state of trance, and then they would experience things, and then they would come back from the other side, and then they would they would give information to the tribe, and these shamans were very revered. They were seen as the gurus of their time. Right? So how were they able to be seen as so vastly more intelligent, or um, be able to give people information that, even though they may not have been, intelligent by our standards, why would they put these people on pedestals? So they must have been able to um, give through some form of knowledge that rings true. And I think that is one of the things, when we experience truth, or when we hear truth, or when we process truth, it kind of has a comfortable feel for us. Anything that isn't true, you kind of don't sit right with. So most humans, if you trust your instinct, we often talk about these things, trust your instinct, trust your gut, and these kind of things, and all these all it means. So these teachers use these entheogens as a means to essentially enhance their brain processing capacity. And this is arguably my experience, that I have found with a lot of these entheogens that you use in a ceremonial space. It's very different to something that you use in a recreational form, and we're not even talking, we're not talking some stuff like LSD. I'm talking mostly the plant-based entheogens that has been used by cultures throughout the world for hundreds of years. So you're talking your cacti, your ayahuasca, which is I don't know if you've heard of ayahuasca or what it may be. I'll explain a little bit about that. Things like mushrooms. I mean, obviously you may be more familiar with mushrooms.
Yeah.
A lot of people, the closest thing that they've experienced to the psychedelic experience is magic mushrooms, but they generally take smaller doses in what we call recreational settings. So they'll take 1 gram or 2 grams at a trance party, and then just dance all night through, because it's an appetite suppressant. Yeah, I mean, it suppresses your appetite. It's a massive antioxidant. If you look at how psilocybin works, right? Once you start taking higher doses, it goes into the lymph nodes. It like your body temperature rises significantly, right? And you feel like you just want to move the whole time, and it has a massive detox effect. Now, at the lower doses, people tend to have these, these image trails. You'd see things kind of move, and everything seems alive, So, and that's what most people kind of think of the psychedelic experience. But once you take these things in the ceremonial settings, where the dosages are arguably much higher, So when you talk about mushrooms, a recreational dose is usually 1 gram and a half. A ceremonial is anything from 4.5 to 5 grams. Right? Now, that is powerful enough to take most people, what you call, over the edge. So you basically can't really go anywhere. You're locked in a chair, or you're lying down, and things get really weird. It's a very weird space and place. But and like we can go into what people may or may not experience. But the point is that these entheogens all kind of work in the same way. So if you look at psilocybin mushroom, the psilocybin and the mushroom effect, and something like DMT, which is dimethyltryptamine, and that molecule in itself, dimethyltryptamine, is produced in your brain. Our body produces DMT. So, but your body metabolizes DMT exceptionally fast. So, when you dream, there is a higher amount of DMT in your bloodstream, versus when you're awake. And these we don't quite understand why these things do what they do, but they tend to bend time. So if you think about when you're in a dream state, you can experience hours and hours and hours and hours of a dream, and you feel like you've experienced a lot, but it's maybe half an hour, or it's an hour. So, and what the entheogens do is very much almost like a dream state, but where you're awake. Right. So you're experiencing more, you're processing more. The left and right hemispheres of the brain is cross-firing. There's much more. Your pupils dilate, especially on psilocybin. So your vision, obviously, when you take a lot, your vision starts like getting blurry. But at the lower amounts, your vision actually improves. So at night, if you take just 1 or 2 mushrooms that you may find out in the wild of a specific type. I'm not saying to people, definitely do not pick wild mushrooms, please.
Yeah, because
I just want to say
some of them are poisonous.
Disclaimer. Yes,
like highly poisonous.
They say all mushrooms are edible. Some only once. So. The thing is, and especially in South Africa, right? There are not that many mushrooms that will kill you, but we pretty much get all of the ones that will kill you. We get them in South Africa. So if you don't know what you're doing, don't fiddle with these things, right? There are professionals that can help you, and if you do want to get in touch or do these ceremonies, and there are a lot of people in South Africa that do psychedelic ceremonies, various forms, ayahuasca, psilocybin, ibogaine, a lot of them to treat people with drug addiction. So this sounds weird. So you're treating people with a drug addiction to, say, an opiate, opiate drug addiction to morphine or it's even maybe something a bit more over the counter like microdols or all that kind of stuff. People get addicted to pain medications, mostly opiates, and a lot of people use, depending on how bad it is, they may use a form of a psychedelic to actually get off of the drug. And I did an experiment with myself where I got myself addicted to tobacco. I'm not a cigarette smoker anymore, but I got myself purposely addicted to tobacco to see how difficult it is to psychologically get my brain and my body off of tobacco. And I tried various methods, and it was hard. I'm not going to lie, and I have a lot of empathy for smokers right now that cannot get, and I mean, I only smoked natural tobacco. I bought the natural kind of stuff, but I mean, I went big, I kind of smoked it in a bong. I didn't even, bother. I just went like back and so I was hitting masses of nicotine into the body.
Yes.
So to get off of it, I tried various things, and in the end, the thing that got me off was a decent dose of mushrooms. One night, just sat, took about 3.5 grams, 4 grams or so. It wasn't a full big dose, but it was enough to get the brain rewiring that, since that night I haven't, I can smell it, I can be around it, doesn't bother me. And that's after, really struggling with it.
Yeah.
So, and we can talk about how and the why that may work, and it's I'm only speaking from my experience. There's loads and loads and loads information online that people can go look at. There are some great documentaries, if you want to look at some of the scientific work. There's a specific one that got me back in 2012, around there, called DMT, the Spirit Molecule. fascinating documentary. It was done, I think it was Dr. Rick Strassman or something like that. He's a psychologist, or he still is a psychologist. They did a big study on specifically DMT and how that affects human beings, and what people reported, etc. So it was in a controlled space with nurses, clinical study, and it was and the findings is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
So I definitely urge people, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It does lay an interesting groundwork as well for understanding the chemistry, which is important. So when I speak about these things, it's fascinating. You can be exceptionally scientific about it, and look at these things from a pure chemistry perspective.
Yes.
But then there's also what I call the woo-woo, spiritually, inner journey. The woo-woo.
The
you
woo-woo.
call it the woo-woo. Everyone goes like,
the woo-woo.
I was like, don't you talk to me about that woo-woo cup, okay? I don't know about your woo-woo cup. Yeah. So
the woo-woo movement.
And yes,
sorry, it's funny.
Yeah, the woo-woo movement. It's interesting. I mean, if you look at a lot of the like scientists, like I think it was Dr. Sheldrake, Rupert Sheldrake, I think is his name, and many of the other scientists in history, many of them became mystics. And I don't think it's because as they're older they thought, well, I wonder what we'll do if we mix this here, this valve with this valve, we take this, we drink it, and they drink it. I don't think they all just made concoctions and kind of fried their brains.
No.
I think as you go deeper down this rabbit hole of understanding our world and trying to figure out your place in space and what it means to be human, but both from a scientific perspective, but also there's a place where it almost seems like the science world and the spirit will kind of tend to cross paths, and where we can't seem to get through that barrier, and it's an interesting place, and when you listen to a lot of these guys speak, they'll talk about the science, but you also, when you listen to them and you speak and you hear how they speak about the spiritual impact and their own development as human beings, then it becomes fascinating. Yeah. And I think what these entheogens do, they give us the ability to do a bit of, call it factory resettings. Kind of like when your phone is getting all clunky and dirty, you do a factory reset, gets it all, and then it's running nice and clean, and it's yeah. So I think how a lot of these entheogens work is it's almost like a bit of a brain reset, where you get insight into your own being often, and sometimes these experiences are scary, and sometimes these experiences are light and fun. Some people have I'm a fairy in the forest, and this is amazing. And then you have and then you have people that literally get dragged through the pits of hell and seeing demons, and and it's all kind of things. And each person's experience is different for a reason. But there is and there's two schools of thought. There's some people that say bad experience is a bad experience, and I have been through what some people would call a bad experience, but from my perspective, it has been the most impactful experience in my life. It made me change my ways completely. It made me change. It reflected who I am as a person. What value do I add to the world? What is the kind of person that I want to be? And I know this is the woo-woo stuff, right? This is the woo-woo stuff, and I get that. And I'm but I'm still deep technical. I write software. Yeah. I run and I write complex software for big corporate things, so it's like it's okay, and I firmly believe it's okay to be a woo-woo kind of person and still be very technical and science and oriented, because it's like I said in one of our previous discussions, if you're unable to keep two completely opposing ideas in your head at the same time, then how can you need to be able to not have that bias, and
Yes.
then take the information from one and take the information from other and let them live in harmony with one another, and you will figure it out for yourself, um, in your own specific way. So
Yeah.
anyway, back to the idea of the end.
Sorry, just before you continue, I do want to, because we do have a few comments that are coming in. The regulars, Tracy Wagner and Storm, thank you guys so much for tuning in again. They really like you, by the way. They're commenting about your intelligence, and they're very excited to learn some more. So I'm just gonna go back here. Everyone's saying hi guys. I'm going to go back
I,
to a question that Tracy asked early on while you were talking. I think it's an interesting one, and you can just give a short answer. Uh, is it possible, let me put it up here, is it possible to experience a psychedelic without being on any chemical substance, in your opinion? She then follows that up with ignore the question if it doesn't make sense. But I think what she's trying to say is, can you have
makes absolute sense. Yeah. I
the
get it.
experience
I
without?
get it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
What do you think?
I Absolutely. I think you can, and I think this is where the context is key. So if you talk about the traditional sense of a psychedelic experience of, let's say, where you'd see the wall kind of warp and so on, maybe if you hyperventilate, you could probably do that. Yeah, meditation I know through meditation you can always get to different states of consciousness. But in terms of experiencing the psychedelic experience, maybe not so. But I don't want to say that. From I have had experiences that were not related to a psychedelic. It's a dream state. Where you have what's the term I'm looking for? It's lucid dreaming. Where you are aware of the fact that you're dreaming.
Yes, I've had
Right.
those.
And yeah, so and in that moment you often have, if you can maintain that space, and it seems that when you're younger it's easier to do it. The older you get, because we get beaten with the stick of these topics are it's in the realm of the taboo and so on and so forth.
Yes.
We kind of forget that part of ourselves. But if as kids, I definitely as a kid I had the ability, well, not even as a kid, as a teenager, I could lie on the bed and just kind of imagine myself on my bed floating around the room, and it would literally feel like I was picked up off the room and twirling and swirling around. And I would feel it in my body, like acceleration and the whole thing. And that's just the power of the mind.
Yep.
So I definitely believe absolutely so. I do think these psychedelic plants, I prefer to use plants. I always say don't panic if it's organic, but also you need to kind of know what you're doing. I prefer to steer clear of chemical compounds. I personally haven't taken any chemical compounds. I've always taken so DMT via ayahuasca, or psilocybin as a mushroom, or there's some other forms that you can get which is in natural state. And a lot of these things is prevalent in almost everything. We just can't digest it orally because our stomach has certain acids and stuff, and it's got a monoamine oxidase inhibitor, which prevents our body from uptaking DMT through the stomach. But there's ways past it. But anyway, so yes, I do think you can achieve it. I do think the older you get, the harder it becomes to do it naturally, because the brain becomes a bit malleable the older you get. It becomes harder to break. It's like they say, you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You can.
Yeah.
You can. It takes a lot more work.
Yeah. It's like
so
practice anything really.
Yeah.
Yeah. You need to
And this is where I find these plant-based medicines, and a lot of your older cultures have used them specifically for this purpose, where you use the plant to kind of give you that shortcut to help you heal yourself, so you don't need to so people often have addictions because they feel there's something missing in their lives, or obviously stress and so on. And often these psychedelic plants, or some people refer to them as teacher plants, and there's many. I mean, even tobacco. I mean, tobacco is considered and was used by the Native American Indians as it's a ritualistic teacher plant. And I'll tell you,
That's true.
the stuff that most people smoking out today is not the
No,
tobacco that was used for this.
no.
I've got tobacco rustica growing in my garden as a trap crop for pests. We planted around our garden. The pests love it, but that's a South American tobacco, and that specific tobacco is also used to make a thing called pape or rape, depends on how you want to produce or pronounce it, but it's basically a snuff, and this stuff is potent. I mean,
Yeah.
I personally haven't tried it. I've tried tiny bits of leaf from my own plants just through a pipe, and it was enough to make my knees wobble and sort of see stars and my head spin.
Wow.
So it's power. It's power. It's power. No, I mean, it's got something like 30 times the amount of nicotine as it's much more powerful. Like, it's powerful stuff, right? So
That
it's not like you're not going to go and roll a fat cigar with these and like spark it up
But that's true
So
in terms of the nicotine content, because my wife went to and I did this as well. We were smoking, we wanted to stop, so we went to vape, and we did I don't know if you've ever heard of the Saltnik, which they say is a bit more organic and it's a bit healthier than smoking cigarettes. And the reason why Saltnik apparently works so well to help you quit is because it's so concentrated with nicotine. And they did warn us. They said in the first maybe day or two, you're going to get very lightheaded because of the nicotine content. And it's true. We took like maybe 3 puffs, and we were like, whoa. So it's funny how
look,
nicotine can do that.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, look, nicotine is a toxin. It's a neurotoxin. That's why it affects the brain like it does, especially if you get high doses.
Yes.
It'll knock you out. I've seen guys that are heavy chain smokers. Take one sort of, because it's a snuff. They sort of blow up through your nose through a pipe. And I mean, I haven't had the balls for it. I'll be honest. I've seen big oaks that were smokers, and they just have one hit, and you see, poof, and they drop down. They drop. They literally fall down on the ground, and they man down for 5 minutes.
Wow.
And then when they come back, but then they come back and they say it's just the clarity is just. And I mean, I can understand from smoking and tobacco, that wake up that you get, it's like, I could do anything. But the problem is that it's like you get on that peak,
yes,
and then you drop, and then you drop it, and you have to get, and you kind of, and you kind of do this where it then gets so much, where your body actually can't cope with it anymore.
Yes, and then you build a tolerance as well, which doesn't help.
Yeah, exactly.
But I just wanna also mention to you, because I think this is funny, when you were talking about a factory reset, how this stuff can help you do like a factory reset. Storm was saying, I could do with a factory reset. There's a couple of memories I'd like to forget, and then Tracy quickly said, "Yeah, me too." So I think you're inspiring.
On that, let's.
I think you're inspiring.
I want to say that.
Yeah.
The thing with these entheogenics, right? It's not going to help you forget those memories, but it's going to help you understand them.
Yeah.
And that is the key thing, is right. It's this concept of gnosis, know yourself. And what a lot of these entheogens do is, in that moment, they actually make you sick, right? If you think like ayahuasca makes you sick, like most people throw up. I've done ayahuasca twice. First time, I blew chunks. I mean, but it wasn't like a difficult. It was just, and I didn't have any psychedelic experience. I just had a 4-hour headache straight up. And I didn't get it. I mean, like, what the hell? I was expecting like this big deal. It was my first psychedelic. I didn't quite know what to expect. And it was just a 4-hour headache. That was it. And puke in the garden outside. But the insight came about a month later. My wife and I did this 2 weeks before we got married, with some good friends. They organized something for us, and we were blessed enough, and I call it a blessing because these things, they are absolute blessings. They It's 2 weeks before we got married. We did this, and on our honeymoon, we had some revelations, and it was basically, I just realized that my life was just a headache. It was just a big headache.
Yeah.
And that was the big message for me. It's like, dude, you are not going to have this amazing experience. You're not going to have this because your life is just a freaking headache. And a year after taking ayahuasca, I had quit my job, we'd sold our house, moved out of the city. 365 days, almost to the day.
Wow.
So that was just the first experience. A second experience with ayahuasca, I didn't get sick at all. Had an amazing, when I had that Shangri-La moment, where it was one of those experiences, and it was arguably what I needed at that time. But with one simple message: when you get stressed, just breathe.
Very
Just
true.
breathe.
Very true.
Just come back to your breath, and I think, yeah, okay.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think trying to run away from bad memories, they will always haunt you. And this is just one of those things.
So that's actually good advice for what. Sorry, this is good advice for what Storm just said, because in reply to you talking about the memories and what you're going into now, he said, "Oh, I understand the memories. That's the problem." So I think the advice you're about to give right now is going to help him.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think what these things often do is they give you an opportunity to look at your life very differently and look at it just objectively, and not subjectively. I mean, and you're able to face some harsh truths about yourself, and maybe some hard truths about, and it's different for everyone. I'm not saying everyone's experience is going to be the same as mine. And each experience that I've had with various different things has been different. So mushrooms, wholly different to what ayahuasca is, very different to what smoking DMT is. So all of these have very different effects. DMT is if you smoke DMT from a distilled crystallized form, or mixed into what they call changa, you literally see space and time disassemble in front of your eyes. It is, look, I mean, there's no other way that I can describe it. But that even doesn't do it justice. And almost everyone has that similar experience. So everything seems to have a certain way that it works, and has a certain effect on your psyche. So, and I think most of these, I think, are more beneficial than harmful. Especially, I have met people at mushroom ceremonies, and I was arguably the youngest person, and I was in my late 30s. So this is not a thing that youngsters do for the most part. There's, a lot of the people there were in their 50s, 60s, people who'd lost a loved one, people who'd gone through a divorce, all kinds of stories, people dealing, like drug addicts, young, there were people that are trying to deal with like being molested. So people often use these things to deal with trauma. I didn't necessarily have trauma. I'm just curious, and I'd say, I'm a very curious individual. I'm curious about the natural world. I'm curious about how we relate to the natural world, how we kind of fit in, what this place is, what it means, what's our purpose. I think the types of questions that everybody wants to answer, but we're too distracted with the day-to-day comings and goings to just kind of take a moment to look at that.
Yeah.
And I think we've been steered away from these plants because you know, if everyone took some entheogens or, once in a while, I promise you the world would be a much, much better place. My personal opinion is, and this is just my opinion, I believe every single political leader should be forced to at least go through, 2 or 3 ayahuasca ceremony to face their own inner demons, right? Because most people in positions of power are drawn to positions of power because they are narcissistic in their behavior.
Yes.
Right. There are very few leaders who go like, oh, I'm so humble, and it's most people aren't leaders. Generally, aren't people in positions on power, aren't those type of people, and those are arguably the types of people that we need in positions of power.
True.
It doesn't mean you want somebody that is a complete, softy and, is a pushover and all that kind of stuff. It's because being in your own strength and being in your own being means that you stand your ground for what you believe that's right and what's wrong, and you help those who are being victimized, and I think it's a very basic rule of life. I think as beings, we don't even need to be taught this. You can recognize when someone is being bullied. You can recognize
Yes.
when power is being abused, and it makes you feel kind of sick to your stomach.
Yeah.
Right, because and this is the woo-woo coming in. We're all in this together. We're all kind of connected. We're in this the soup of possibility. I like to think of this world as a soup of consciousness, and our consciousness has its view of this world and this place, and we project our will and our thoughts and fears and loves and hates, we project it out into the world, and therefore we create what we feel.
Yeah.
We create the thoughts, we create it through it. So when they say, there's these very old sayings that say, be wary your thoughts become your words, be wary your words become your actions, be wary your actions become your reality. It's, and then there's these things like The Secret, which is, it's no secret. It's common sense.
Yeah.
It's common sense. It's just really common sense. And we've been very much disconnected from that. And I think all that these entheogens do, they just kind of just cut the wiring that's not needed, and kind of rewire the brain. Okay, yeah, this goes here, this goes there. And then he does a few things, and boom, Bob's your uncle. I have not met people that have gone through these types of ceremonies and have come out of it and saying, you know what, never again. Look, the first time you do ayahuasca, you go, I'm not doing this again. I'm not. This is because the taste is disgusting. It is gross. It is like, you don't do this for fun. You gotta have some grit in your teeth, right? But the benefits that you gain from it, makes you want to go back. Like I said, I've had experience with mushrooms where I felt that I had died. I had experienced my own death. I was sitting in this place and I was just regretting all these things and it's a powerful thing, right? To experience your own death. I can't really describe it, aside from I don't want to go through that again ever in my life.
Yeah.
So, but fortunately, it's as painful as those experiences are, and there's and I've said this to you in offline discussion before. There's not a day that goes by that I don't think about that night, all those experiences. And I've had several of these. Some of them fun and light. Some of them really, really difficult. So you don't dabble with these things because it's fun. You do it because you are prepared to become the best version of yourself, not just for yourself, but because you want to be it for everyone else.
Yeah, that makes sense, man.
Yeah. So, yeah.
I
don't know. I don't know if people have questions about specific substances or specific plants. I mean, there are so many. There are so many plants that have chemistry. I mean, there are entheogen lilies, that grow in dams all around South Africa that are so potent, that if people knew what they were looking for, we'd have people tripping their ass off daily.
There was a question actually from Tracy. I'm trying to look for it. I think she asked. No, not that. She asked like what plants could you recommend? But I can't. Oh wait, here it is. I think I'm studying it. Let me see this one. I'm studying a theory on how to obtain a chemical balance naturally. Any tips? Plant-based. I'm completely off chemical meds.
So again, like full disclaimer, I'm not a doctor. I'm not, I'm a software engineer that reads a lot. I do, I come from a family, Afrikaans family that used to, I used to eat a lot of meat. I was a heavy meat eater. I personally, I'm a predominantly plant-based eater. When I say predominantly, it's probably about 99%, 99.9% I eat plant-based. The little bit of meat that I do eat is venison, wild venison only, primarily because I just want to avoid any chemicals in the meat. So I have a basic theory: don't panic if it's organic, but always do your homework. Right? It's very simple. So there are. And it's different for each person, right? I can't say to you, go and go eat this or go and go eat that, or do this or do that, because each person's physiology is different.
Yes.
Each person's situation is different. I'd almost have to say, all right, you need to give me like a full breakdown of your like what your current diet is, what you do for exercise, what your stress levels are, because all of these things are factors in what makes a natural balanced homeostasis. And I think that's what you were referring to. A chemically balanced human being is just having a good homeostasis. When you have a good homeostasis within your body naturally has good immunity. Your body naturally is fit and strong. I'm 42 this year. I don't exercise that much. I'm mostly sedentary, and I'm arguably the fittest that I've been in my whole life. And I only went plant-based like 7-8 years ago, and it's been a hell of a learning curve for both me and my wife. So she's been fantastic. She does a lot of the cooking. And I went plant-based before she did. So I was still cooking her meat for like a year and a bit, and she hated making meat, so she would make me all my plant-based meals, and I would make all the meat-based dishes. So I went plant-based not from a ethical standpoint. I was just I tried to lose weight by going on a heavy protein-based diet, and it really messed with my liver, and I could feel it. And it got to the point where when I smelled meat, I felt like just the bile would come up and I wanted to throw up. So I went vegetarian overnight.
Wow.
Just from just sheer disgust. I couldn't stomach just all the protein anymore. And I felt much better. I lost too much weight because I wasn't eating healthy. So it took me some time to figure out what it means to have a healthy plant-based diet. And I'm not saying that's the answer for everyone. Food is a very sensitive topic. So I don't want to be preachy about it. I don't want to say what you must eat, what you shouldn't eat. But I'll say this: I eat amazing food. I eat a lot. I probably have a much wider variety of food that I eat now, and we grow a lot of our own as well. It's actually, once you get connected to your food, you have this urge of, well, maybe not for, I first got interested in growing stuff from smoking weed, from just wanting to grow my own weed plants and that thing. And it's like, well, if I can grow some weed, I can probably grow some tomatoes. So then I grew some tomatoes, and I thought, well, if I can grow tomatoes, I could do some lilies, and then I grew some lilies. So my weed smoking got me to grow some plants, and then I ended up basically ripping up my entire plot and table view in the city bowl, and our front yard and backyard was just planted with veggies, much to the dismay of our neighbors, because we had homeless people coming by and taking the food from the front yard, which was the whole idea.
Mm.
You know? So it was like, here's some fresh veggies, whenever it's ready, and people took it. We were totally cool with it,
Yeah.
and it was nice. I felt cool. It was a nice thing to do. Um, but and that was also why we decided to pack up and get out of the cities, because we just wanted more space to grow more food. It becomes quite addictive. And now, our place where we are now, we were here for about 3 years, then we went to the garden route for a while, and came back. But when we left, we had something like about 180 different species of plants growing.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it's a fascinating. Plants are fascinating. You just gotta just watch them, and you just gotta learn. And it's patience,
Yeah.
patience, 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 patience.
Would you say you're a
Yeah.
farmer?
No, I wouldn't say I'm a farmer, right? Farming is, when you talk about like farming large scale, feeding large volumes of people, that is quite an intensive thing.
Mm.
We've got like a small scale property. I do what they call permaculture. So um, it's a different way of farming. It's like we don't spray, we don't till, everything's it's natural systems, but it's systems that interact with one another so that you end up growing multiple crops in one space.
Mm.
So it's very non-traditional in the farming sense, but it's not really new. It's actually very old school ways of doing it. It's very natural. So if you look in a forest has what you call root crops. There's food in the roots. There is understory or shrub type foods. These bushes with berries and so on. And then you've got vines that climb up trees, and you've got fruit trees. So you have food in one place, but it stacks up in height.
Mm.
So in permaculture, we try to mimic that by being sort of semi-structured. So you plant your fruit trees, and in between your fruit trees, you'd have certain ground crops, and you'd have climbers, and so that's the kind of thing that we're doing.
That's awesome, though. I mean, I think. Do you find that you save a lot of money when you do this stuff, or is it does it not?
No, no, no. Look, when you start out with a farm, or small scale kind of farming operation, it costs money, because
That's
you need
true.
water, especially when, like, the bigger you go, right? So it's like, I still view it as a hobby at this stage, but because we're expanding our operation, and we will get to a point, and this will be like 5 years down the line, where we'll get 80% of our food from our garden, and only have to like supply an additional 20%.
Yeah.
So, um, but will the investment, be as cheap as just keep on buying my food from Pick and Pay? Maybe not. But the satisfaction that I get from that, and the quality of food, and watching it grow right there, and I know I have food security no matter what.
Yes,
Good
that's
food
true.
security.
Yeah.
I'm using natural systems, so we grow the food and stuff in such a manner that it also becomes quite resilient.
Mm.
That it can kind of survive semi-droughts. It can, so you almost train your plants to become more resistant over time by introducing fungus into the soil. So it becomes very scientific, right? But also quite interesting when you start looking at how everything just
Yeah,
nicely
it works
ties
together.
into each other. It's like magic. It's like this. It's like it's a beautiful thing. But like I said, it gets a little addictive.
Well, it's like an ecosystem. Like when you see these, I've seen on YouTube
Mm,
these aquariums that guys make, but it's not. I'm not talking
mm,
about like a goldfish aquarium with a little castle
mm,
in the aquarium. I'm talking about like these guys. Like wow, they've literally made an ecosystem in this little tank where the water is given this bacteria, which the
mm.
shrimp, and it's a specific kind of shrimp that will feed off
Yeah.
of this and feed off feces.
Mm,
So they also need to put in this kind of fish that the shrimp will also like eat its feces, and then there's this different kind of food that they give
mm,
them from the plants that are around in the aquarium, that when the leaf falls or when this falls, or the soil that's in the thing, the roots,
yeah.
it's all linked together. So the fish gets the food, plants gets the food, everything from a microbiology level to a um,
Mm,
large animal biological level. They all
Yes.
it's self sufficient in its own way,
Yeah.
which is
And
fascinating.
you'll find these systems, these systems kind of they almost repeat themselves.
Yes.
You know, if you think almost like it's these patterns that keep going, like just it's beautiful. You know,
Yeah.
it's like they say, this nothing is new, nothing is recreated, everything is just a copy of a copy of a copy. It's just
Absolutely.
slightly more complex, it's bigger, etc., etc. So, and what these entheogens do, right? They give you often, I wouldn't say like the knowledge, like they say, okay, now you can just look at the
The stars.
chart, like at the periodical chart. No, you can just look at the periodical chart. Like, oh yeah, I know what this all is, and I can, do the formulas. I mean, it's not like you Neo that just downloads
Yeah.
like, oh, now I know kung fu. It's not quite like that, but you have a much better, I would almost say, intuition. So when you watch things,
Mm.
you it's your brain is almost, it's easier for your brain to start recognizing how everything just kind of works, and how the solutions, how to solve problems. There's some interesting studies that show during the 70s they used LSD to like low dosages of LSD with scientists. They would get scientists in and they'd say, okay, and computer scientists, they would say, okay, they get a group in and say, okay, a specific problem that you've been struggling with, we're going to give you a low dose, a microdose of LSD, and they would put music on, and then they would go work on their problem. And the findings that they come out, and what the participants would say is they were able to look at their problems from a very different perspective while they were in this. They were still, they weren't like tripping, but they just had a tiny amount, like what we call a microdose of these substances in their bloodstream, which just seems to make your brain just peak and function just that little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I I often microdose with psilocybin mushrooms, and so you take point something of a gram, and those will you can sit and focus for 4 or 5 hours, just sit and code. It's almost like what's that movie Limitless,
Yeah. Good move.
where he goes, he just take what ZXZT
Yeah.
or
Whatever it was.
ZT10, or I can't remember, yeah, I can remember. He goes, okay, now you can do finance. I don't think it's quite like that, but your focus is definitely better.
Yes.
I'm able to focus for longer, and so on. So um, there's but the problem is why you won't see a lot of research in these plants or in these is because none of these drugs can be patented because it's a natural substance.
Mm.
You can grow most of these things and make your own. So there's no money in it. It's if things like your psilocybin mushrooms and psychedelic experiences were fully legalized as um, methods of helping people deal with traumatic experiences, it would put a large portion of psychologists out of business.
Yep.
Because
I can imagine.
yeah, and it's not like the problems just fade away. We still have you still have problems in your life, but you have it's much easier to deal with them and cope with them and get through them.
I think maybe
It's almost like it makes you more.
yeah. I think maybe a good example or analogy is I don't do drugs at all. I mean, the most I've done is
Bullshit.
I mean,
You've been sucking on that stick for the last thing. That's a drug.
fine.
That's a drug.
Nicotine. Yeah, nicotine. Okay,
That's
fine.
a
I
drug.
do
That's a
nicotine.
drug. No. And what were you drinking there? Coke, right? Coke.
Oh man, now you're being really
Sugar is a drug. No, sugar is a drug.
That is true.
I mean, and look, no sugar. It's not necessarily the Coke. It's the sugar.
Yeah, it is the
Yeah, and it's
horrible.
So I don't like. I personally I don't use a lot of sugar. Sugar is one of the first things that I cut out of my diet.
I need to.
Yeah.
I need to.
Yeah. And sugar cane. I grow a lot of sugar cane. Oddly enough. Yeah, because raw sugar cane, when you juice it, when you juice the water, it's delicious and it's good for you. it's super. It's like our bodies want glucose. Like
Mm.
our bodies just guess, just give me that sugar because that's what the cells need. The cells need
Yes, yes.
glucose and sugars to actually function, right? So that's why sugars are so good for us. We go, yeah, more. But the sugars that we have aren't so good. But if you have natural sugars, they much better for you.
Yes.
So honeys, you can use maple syrup, natural organic maple syrups.
Love maple syrup.
But sugarcane, sugarcane is one of the easiest things to grow. You can grow it you just get a cutting from somewhere, let your wastewater from your kitchen and that kind of stuff, let it grow from that. It grows like a reed. It's phenomenal. And you just juice that and you can make your own sugar syrup
Yeah.
without buying sugar. It's going to be much because the problem with the sugar is that it's completely boiled, cooked, it's bleached, it's all that kind of shit that
Yes.
goes through your normal white sugar. So it's not sugar that's the problem. It's exceptionally highly refined sugar that you drink in massive doses each and every day. That's the problem.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. And also, like I was gonna say, the thing is, like, I think with doing
You don't do
the
drugs, though.
with doing the more natural stuff, it's
Yeah.
better because it's natural. I mean, you don't. I don't know. Like, I don't know how addictive the natural stuff is, but when you do, let's say, heroin, which is one of the most addictive drugs you can do,
Mm,
it's all that stuff that is put in the heroin that makes also
mm,
contributes to it being addictive
mm,
and stuff like that. But I don't know,
mm,
is the natural way, the natural mushrooms, the natural
mm,
plant based stuff, is it addictive?
mm.
Do you get addicted to it, or addicted to it? Sorry.
No. I mean, nicotine is addictive because I
Yes.
can say that because I've been addicted to it, right?
Yeah.
And I got myself off it. But I don't feel a physical addiction for cannabis, or I don't feel a physical addiction for mushrooms, or physical addiction for any because there's just no way you can get physically addicted to them. They actually purge your body of physical addictions. They rewire the brain.
Mm.
So you may do it frequent because you may feel the euphoria afterwards, because there is a certain euphoria that you get afterwards. But the stuff that you have to go through that for that little bit of euphoria, I only do it like I'll maybe do it like once a year, once every 6 months, maybe. If I really feel like time and space and I need it and so on. The rest of the time, I'm fine.
Mm.
It's like I'm good. But
That
things like morphine, I've had morphine like when I had an accident.
yeah, me too.
It's not I mean I wasn't a morphine addict, but like I mean I had severe like surgery and that kind of stuff, and the morphine that they gave me, oh man, it's beautiful. You just like you just feel like oh everything just fades away. Like just
It's very
more.
true.
Just,
when I
just give
had
me fuck it. I don't.
when I had my bike accident, my leg was broken, and I was in hospital for 2 weeks. Uh, yo, I was begging for that morphine, man, because it just the moment they prick it, and then you wait like 5 seconds, and then I can sleep.
Yeah,
There's no pain,
yeah,
nothing. It's
yeah.
so peaceful. It's so nice. Now we sound like we're addicted to morphine. Reminiscing.
Yeah, no, it's serious. Look, dude, it's serious. I mean, I've had morphine once, and I'd be like, yeah, I could go for a shot of morphine right about now. So you just because you're addicted to that shit is.
But that's the thing. Like I think
No, I'm just
also
kidding.
um, that's another thing I wanted to point out is that you said now that the natural things help you process emotions, help you process who you are,
Mm,
help you just deal with trauma and all that stuff.
mm,
Whereas I feel that the other drugs, the chemical ones, the ones like
mm,
ecstasy, cocaine,
mm,
heroin, those ones and people flip and take them like crazy. Like there's a lot of
mm,
addicted people out there, and they always say, "Oh, I want to forget my problems,"
mm,
but they don't actually forget their problems. If anything, the emotion intensifies, the negative emotion
mm.
intensifies.
Yeah,
Whereas with the natural
and
ones,
and and here's the reason why you feel like a loser.
mm,
Very few people will admit this. You feel like a loser. Like when I struggled to get myself off of tobacco because I was quite gung ho. I was like, fuck it. I mean, how hard can tobacco be to let go? I mean, come on, man, it's not that hard. And I struggled, man, and I would beat myself up about it because I would hear my chest wheezing, and I'm like, come on, man, this stuff is bad for you. This
Yeah.
is like, what's your problem? Just. And then I would tell my wife to hide the stuff, and then she would hide it, and then I would get into this like, that. Yeah, and it's horrible. It's horrible. It's horrible.
Yes.
And um, I'm I can like that's why I say these chemically and even I mean tobacco in its natural form is still very addictive.
Yes.
And constant use is not good for you. Even the natural tobacco. So I think everything you can use too much. Absolutely.
Yes. But that goes with
You can have
anything.
too much coffee. You can have anything.
Anything.
And if you have an addictive nature, then choose the thing that does the least harm and get addicted to that.
I'm so glad you.
That would be.
Yeah, I'm so glad you just mentioned that because we actually had a question. What if you think you have an addictive personality? And you just answered that.
It's absolutely. I mean, I do believe that I have a bit of an addictive personality. It's like when. And
I think we all do.
A lot of
depends
things,
on what it is. Like your
yeah,
vice.
so
has a
I mean,
vice.
if I get interested, if I get interested in something, I'll just go down that rabbit hole.
Exactly.
It's like go, 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 and that's a form of addiction. So these it can manifest in different ways. And I think often addiction manifests when you're struggling to deal with your problem, because when you're getting quiet and you sit quiet in that stillness, and this is where with mushroom and psilocybin they say also you take 5 grams in silent darkness, so that there's no disturbances, there's no visual things that can disturb you. So the only thing that you can think about and talk about is you, right? So it's all about you and what you do. So, and it's that internalized focus, and it's easy to try and like get scattered and think about other things, but and I think that's where you can get the real value from. That's where you can become what I think most people can be, because I think most people are phenomenal. I think most people have phenomenal capacity. I think most people are way more than they think they are. They've been taught. They've been engineered to be less. They've been engineered to fear. They've been engineered to not question. They've been engineered to just do as they're told.
Yeah.
And that's no way of living, right? That's just, so, and I think what these things do is it kind of makes you realize that these things are just symbols. They're things that make you not live your life, but just kind of get on with it, I suppose. And that's not really like, what are your goals? What is your mission? Like, are you, and I suppose not everyone wants to leave an impact, and you don't have to leave an impact, but it's important for yourself. If you don't have a purpose for yourself, that's where I think a lot of unhappiness stems from.
Absolutely.
It's that aimlessness of not knowing what you're supposed to do with your life.
Absolutely. No,
but that's just my opinion. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a guy on the internet that does drugs. Yeah.
And on that note, and on that bombshell.
On that bombshell.
We have gone a bit over time. I think, unless there's anything pressing that you really want to say more on the topic, we can pretty much say goodbye. But on what you were saying, I completely 100% agree with you. I don't know, like, is there, if anyone was to watch this later, if anyone is watching now and wants to maybe, I don't want to say experiment with it, but maybe wants more information about what we're talking about the drugs that you are talking about, is there a place they can go to find out more information?
The exact same place where they are now. And I know it sounds facetious, is the internet. There are loads of websites. There are, and you can go to YouTube and just Google DMT, or you can Google psilocybin and benefits, or benefits of entheogens. So there's various keywords to start your own journey, right? I don't want to say go look at this resource or go look at that specific resource, because I may be creating a confirmation bias for you. But start with the first question that you may have, because there are a lot of people that are far more qualified than myself, that have done a lot of the science behind it, and I think that's important. When you look at wanting to take any form of drug, whether it's a drug sold by a big pharmaceutical organization like a GlaxoSmithKline, or any of those guys. And look, I'm not against, and I often get this, that people may think that I'm anti pharmaceutical organizations and a lot of this kind of stuff, and I think science is important. I think science matters. I think medicine is important. I think it's the type of medicines that we take. I think we need to be very cognizant of what we put into our bodies. And if you take care of your body, you probably wouldn't need to take a lot of the stuff that is there. But when it is there, then use it. Because if you use it too often, then it serves no purpose. Your body builds resistance, etc., and you never really address the real problem.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right.
That's...
So just Google, guys. Tracy asked, and the suppliers, but again, just Google the words, the keywords that Venner just mentioned. Now you'll see the word. Ben, how do you pronounce the title in the title of the video?
Entheogen.
Entheogen. That's the title of this video. So just Google that. Yeah. And then you'll find a whole plethora of stuff. The internet is a beautiful place, guys. It's a beautiful place.
Or they can follow. They can go and follow me on Twitter and hit me a message, whatever, if they have these specific questions. Just say who you are from the show, and then I can follow you back. You want to send me a DMs or something like that with questions. And when I have a moment, I'll answer them. I'm not going to let me pass my email out.
Don't do that.
I think I think my Twitter's. I don't know if you've got it in the bio, but you can link it.
I can put it there. I'll put it there.
Yeah. And then I'm happy to answer questions. It's obviously when and how I have time to do so.
Yeah.
But there's loads of information.
Yeah.
Loads and loads and loads.
Yeah. Look, guys, Venner Weber is a very busy man, and I'm not being funny. I'm being serious. He manages a farm, and he works, and he does other things. He has hobbies, plenty of hobbies. So do not take what he's saying like, oh, I don't have time for you. No, it's just he's a busy guy. And
I will get back to you eventually. I promise. It's just I sometimes just have a lot that I have to go through.
Yeah. So on that note, I think this was a very enlightening and interesting topic that we discussed today. I'm really, it's got me thinking. I'll be honest. It's got me thinking. I'll do some research, but it's got me thinking. And I hope it's tickled your guys' minds a bit, and maybe opened up your mind that not all drugs are necessarily bad, if I could put it that way, and that again, just do the research. Google, find out as much information.
Make up your own mind.
Exactly.
That's the key thing. You must decide for yourself. Don't take anything I say as truth. Don't take anything as Joe's. Definitely don't take anything as Joe's as truth, because he doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. Just kidding. No, don't ever take anybody's word on anything, even if it's the most qualified person in the world. Double check Einstein's work. Double check, double check anybody's work, because anybody can make a mistake. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
It's best to follow your own instinct, and it's the best way that you learn something. When somebody just spoon feeds you, you forget. When you go walk the path yourself, you become that expert.
Yes.
And it's if you want it's only if you want to do that thing. If you just want to dabble, if you just want to if you just want to know who can hook you up with some mushrooms, there are people that are fighting the fight. There are people that do ceremonies, we don't do ceremonies. I'll put that straight up. I don't do ceremonies for other people, at least not yet. We are working towards legalization for that side of it as well. So, but there are places that do these things still, even though it's not necessarily legal, but I think it's still useful. I did mine, was completely illegal. They almost had to call the cops because, I got a little bit out of hand. But I did take 12 grams, which was more than double what, it was an enormous
Yep.
amount of mushrooms.
That's right.
Which is why I thought I died. I thought I had a heart attack and died. So
Jeez.
but
Wow.
anyway, so yeah, just find out for yourself.
Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Well, that's it for tonight's episode of Let's Talk. Again, I think it was very insightful, very interesting, and I feel like I have to say this as well. We're not saying, because I really don't want people to get the wrong idea. Say no to
Yeah,
drugs, kids. Okay, like there are drugs out
absolutely,
there that are
absolutely,
really bad,
absolutely,
and you mustn't
absolutely,
listen to your parents. Go to fucking school,
absolutely.
okay? Because yeah,
Yes,
that
kids
can, yeah, that's, you know,
or homeschool, teach yourself. That's
yeah,
also fine. But just keep learning. Don't be stupid. Don't just take anything willy nilly.
yeah,
Know what you're doing to your body.
exactly. Perfectly
That's
said.
all.
Perfectly said. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, Tracy. Thank you, Storm, and everybody else that was tuned in. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for liking the video. Don't forget to share and comment later if you're watching later. And yeah, we'll catch you next week, Wednesday, probably for the next one. We will be announcing shortly what that topic will be. But yeah, thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Good night and stay safe. Cheers.
Bye-bye.